Welcome everyone to the ITF funding webinar for 2024. This is our first event for outreach for the 9th cycle. I am quite honored to be opening up the first event for the 9th cycle 2024 September. So welcome everyone, and we really appreciate the massive support with registration and really also showing up today, so we welcome you. And as we welcome you, please, it's very important to us. It's very important to us that you share with us who you are. And we only want three things. We only want three things: your name, your organization, and your country. Okay. If for some reason you're not comfortable with sharing that in the chat box, you can send it to our email, the one that invited you to this space, ITF account, or I will share my email at the end, or you can just directly message my colleague. But we really need to know, especially which organization and which country you are from. And I think this is very important because we ask it for registration, and we appreciate all those that tell us your organization and your country. But if you missed that out when you were registering, we ask that you kindly share that with us. It's very, very important that we know which country you're from and which organization that you are from. Thank you. So just take a few minutes to do that while I sort of gear up. But we'll really appreciate if you do that for us. So for this presentation, which is around the funding webinar, this is a funding webinar outreach event. And I would like to clarify that we have 3 events for our outreach. 3 events. We have the funding webinar event, we have an application walkthrough event, and then we have office hour question and answer event. This is the funding webinar event. And the funding webinar event is open, but especially for new people to the ITF who want to know about the ITF process, grant making, how to apply, maybe because they've never applied before, but also it could be that you've applied before and you've not been successfully awarded a grant. So it could be you're coming with that curiosity of who is ITF, or how can we better apply to the ITF. But this one is general information about the ITF. The application walkthrough is a deeper dive. Okay, I repeat, the application walkthrough is a separate event from a funding webinar. It's different because the application walkthrough, we will be talking about the content of the application. We will really, really be digging deep into sharing information with you on how to answer applications, ideal responses, strong responses. So for example, how to talk about impact, which are things that we felt like maybe groups that have had an experience applying to ITF and not been successful would benefit from. And then the third event is the office hours Q&A, which is exactly how it is titled. It is, you walk in with a question that you have. It could be about your application, or it could be really just about your curiosity with the ITF. And that's when it's sort of like, one-on-one, we are going to attend to you in real time for 1 hour. That will be open. So people will walk in. The idea, you walk in, you get your question sorted, you can go if you want, you can stay. But we want you to know that these 3 events are different. They're not the same. They're different services that we are giving. So you're welcome to be at any of them, or even all. We would encourage you to be at all, especially if you're thinking of putting in an application to the ITF. Okay, so now that that's clear, but also if there's any questions around that, we will discuss at the end. This funding webinar event and presentation will include, we're going to speak really just about background, just an overview about the past. And I will talk about participatory grant making so you can understand who the ITF is and how we are. But I won't waste much more time other than go into our our 2025-2026 ITF grant making, which is the 9th cycle, which is our upcoming cycle, which is our new cycle, I will speak about what is our priorities for this cycle, the eligibility criteria, what we fund, what we don't fund. I'll speak about the seed and thrive applications, and I'll speak about our online application process because this is the second time we're doing it. And at the end, I will talk about how you can make your application strong, okay? I will talk about how you can make your application strong. So just getting started now. So our grant making cycle, we've disbursed quite a lot of money. We started with 500K, in 2017. And we are at a point that overall the cycles, we've given out over $6 million US. So this is for the 8 cycles, and we are now coming to the 9th. And each year, we get a lot of applications. We really do get a lot of applications, and these applications have been eligible applications because we go through an eligibility process. So even after we have sieved out the ineligible applications, we still have a high number of applications that have to go through review or consideration for ITF funding. So we love that. We love that. But we just want to remind you of that because it means that not all of them can be funded. Not all of them can be funded. So it's important to us to offer these services and give outreach so that you are best equipped with knowledge and information about the ITF, but also get the relevant information to help you to apply, to help you to put in a strong application for funding so that your application can stand out. I encourage you also that if you do not, you're not successful, you keep trying. Because we do this every year. We open up our calls every year. It's annual funding. So if you're not successful previously, please do so the next time. But because like I said, if you're eligible, just keep trying. Just keep trying every year. And also keep engaging in these outreach processes, in these outreach events to get more information. And also particularly just finding out how you can make your responses stronger and how your application can stand out so that you can appeal to our grant making panel because, and I'm going to speak about our participatory grant making process shortly. But because you are writing to our grant making panel that has 15 trans activists across the world, so we are a global fund, and so we get a lot of applications. I think that's why it's important that we share that information with you about the high volume. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for your applications. We very much appreciate that, and we hope that you'll be patient with us. And we hope that soon, if you've not been successful, that soon you will get successful with your application. So about the ITF, our purpose is to build and sustain a mechanism to support trans-led organizations of different sizes, working on a range of issues, international, regional, country, and local levels, with emphasis on organizations with access to fewer resources. Okay, so that's our purpose. And then secondly, we strive to increase resources and enhance access to resources to support trans movements. Very many of you who have partnered with us know that we also try as much as possible to share information about other funding sources or build your capacity in that regard. So it's important to us that you're able to expand and diversify. Our third objective is to educate peers in the philanthropic community on trans issues and influence other funders and strategic allies in trans-related commitments and strategies. So those three, that's really about us. As you can see, our purpose is really just that trans movements are resourced. Okay. And so I was speaking about who we are. I was speaking about the ITF. But the very core of the ITF is participatory grant making. And this is illustrated by our body that makes funding decisions, which we call the grant making panel. It's basically a group of trans activists. These folks are from different parts of the world. These folks come with a range of experience, expertise, diversity, but they are from the community, they are from the movement, they're from the community. So we are an activist donor fund. As a participatory grant maker, the community is deciding, about the funding. And so that is something very super and important when it comes to philanthropy. But that's something that you should know, and why it is important for you to know what often the GMP is looking for in the application. So 15 folks, they will basically review the eligible applications. Note that I highlight eligible because we're going to speak about our eligibility criteria. Kindly look at our eligibility criteria. If you do not fit in the eligibility criteria, unfortunately, we won't consider you because our eligibility criteria is specifically built on resourcing trans-led organizations with budgets below $100,000 US. But there's also other things that need to be ticked. So if you see that you do not fit within the eligibility criteria of ITF, unfortunately, we will not be considering you. We will ask that you consider looking at other funding sources. Yeah. However, once you are eligible and your application will go through a process of review from the grant making panel, and the board will ratify this decision. So it's very much in the spirit of accountability and transparency. And our priorities, this is when we launched in 2016, and there you can see that I was such a puppy. But our funding priorities, I guess, would be to fund a diversity of groups. We seek to be as diverse as possible. So even as I give examples of the diversity, which is regions, language, gender identities, strategies, and issues, that's not closed. And I think that also is an important part of diversity. You can never have a cap to that. So another thing is we strive to reach trans communities facing greater levels of marginalization. Again, there's no closed examples of this marginalization. So just to guide you on what we're talking about, we all know these things like racism, classism, ageism, ableism, misogyny, but we know that there's much more. So we also love to be educated from your applications to tell us what kind of marginalization work you're working on. And supporting trans groups whose work is intersectional and contributes to social justice, movement building, and the liberation of trans people. Okay, so eligibility criteria would be, okay, first and foremost, you must be trans-led. And what we mean by trans-led organization is that trans identifying people, okay, trans and gender diverse people are in decision-making roles. So decision-making roles may include setting the organization's strategic and financial priorities. That can be an example of the power that lies in decision making. So for example, finance folk, manager folk and things like that, and make up 75% of the staff, spokespeople, and board or decision-making body. So folks, if you're one trans person and the other 5 people are cis people, that is not a trans-led organization. That's just an example. So we will ask you to please consider our eligibility criteria when we say that we only fund trans-led organizations, because we will not fund your organization. We actually won't consider your organization for funding if your organization is not trans-led. Now, there's a sort of exception to this. If your organization is not as I have described, or in the example that I have described, you have to give, and you really have to, in your application, say why. You have to say, first of all, how trans people make those decisions, budget, organizational, and strategic decisions, even if they're not in their positions. But you also have to give us the reason why, right? So I just give an example of this. It could be that you're in an environment where you can't organize like that. And those people that are in those environments that can't organize like that, they know what I'm talking about. So that's an example, but it could be something else, which again, we are curious to be educated by you about what that is. So the bottom line is, tell us in your application, write to the GMP as if they do not know. Do not assume that we know, and do not even assume that the ITF staff know. You have to write and tell us. And then secondly, so that's the trans-led, and I think it's also something that has been commonly challenging to folks, and I hope that this explanation would offer some clarity, but that is the main area. But the other point under eligibility criteria is budget. So you could be a trans-led organization, fine, thank you. But then your budget, if it is over $100,000, unfortunately, will not consider you. So you must have an operating budget under $100,000, because I said earlier on, one of the priorities of ITF is to reach groups with limited resources. And so this is sort of the guidance for that. And then be a group of people. And third, this is the third and very important thing. We cannot fund individuals. We are funding organizations, and organizations can be defined as 2 or 3 people, but you can't be one person. Absolutely not. If you're one person, you're not an organization, and unfortunately, we will not consider you for funding. So this is our eligibility criteria. The last one, the main focus of your work is to benefit the trans community. You could have all of these 3 above, but your organization is not doing work on trans issues or trans rights, right? So if your organization is not doing work to benefit the trans community, maybe you're working on other things. I don't know what example I can give. But if you're not working on things related to trans issues, then you cannot be considered for funding from the ITF, unfortunately. And then the last one is around movement building. So I think it's similar to the previous point. Your organization, if it's only doing service delivery-based work, unfortunately, we will not consider you. So an example of that is if your organization is, for example, running a school, or you're doing something like around services, like you're doing, let me say, legal services, a law firm. Fine, you're trans-led, you have operating budget below that one, and then your group of people, you're benefiting trans, but you're only giving services. We can't consider. We need you to also engage in movement building work. So examples of movement building work can be things like advocacy, can be things like campaigns, sensitization, can be also around community mobilization, bringing together folks to give, information, to engage in research, to engage in sort of improving access to healthcare or gender family health. So I'm just giving examples, but it's not, the range is really, really unlimited when it comes to movement building. And sometimes groups define this, what movement building is. But now I hope you get a clear sense of the difference between movement building and service delivery. I hope that's clear, because that's also a common one that is on our FAQs. So I just wanted to emphasize on some of those points. And I gave examples of what those are. And folks, I want to remind you that we will be publishing and sharing our guidelines for this upcoming cycle, 9th cycle. And you will see and have all this information available there, and even much more. It's comprehensive. It's going to guide you and give you examples. So look out for that. And if you're considering to prepare an application to ITF, we highly encourage you to first read the guidelines. They're available in all the languages. Speaking about our grant type, so as ITF, we have two grant types. We have the seed grant and we have the Thrive grant. So for the 9th cycle, a seed grant, I will start with, I will explain each separately. So the seed grant is a grant type that, as it speaks for itself, seed, it's open to new groups. So groups that have never received ITF funding, you can apply for the seed grant type. It is a 1-year grant. We do encourage general support related grant applications, but you can also do project if you want. The seed grant type, and this is what makes it different from Thrive, is the seed grant type offers $10,000 to $25,000. So if you are applying for a seed grant type as a new group to the ITF, a new group meaning a group that has never received funding from the ITF, we do ask that you consider going for the range $10,000 to $25,000. And I think, folks, just a small tip is when you're thinking about how much to apply, first of all, look at the grant type you're applying for. So minimum here is $10,000 and maximum is $25,000. Why I'm saying that is don't apply for more than $25,000 for seed grant type, okay? Because the ceiling for the seed grant type is $25,000. That's one. But B is that when you are thinking about the funding range, how much to request from the ITF, and this applies to both grant types, ask for the money that your group needs to do the work, right? It should reflect in terms of what is in your budget. It should reflect in terms of what in your activities. So you really have to sit down and think when you are requesting for grant range, think about the money that you actually need to do the work. I think that's a good tip for you to think about. So seed grant is for if you've never received ITF funding. So if you've never received ITF funding, please do not apply for Thrive grant, okay? So the Thrive grant type is the second grant type and also 1-year grant, but it's only for groups that have previously been funded by the ITF. So if you're a past, previous, current grantee partner of the ITF, you can apply for a Thrive grant. If for some reason you want to apply for a seed grant as a previously funded group, that's fine, we welcome it. But if you're a new group to the ITF, if you've never received ITF funding, please do not apply for the Thrive grant type. Unfortunately, it will be very difficult for you if you make a mistake to change that because of how the process is moving, and that is also online. It is through Smart Simple, the platform. So Smart Simple even will, for example, not accept more than one application. So please don't try to apply for seed grant and then Thrive grant as well. Just put in one application, but be very careful to make sure that you're applying for the right grant type. Okay, I hope that was very clear. The other thing about the Thrive grant is the range. So you can see the grant range. The grant range for the Thrive grant is $25,000 to $50,000. Excuse me. So for the Thrive grant type, again, same tip, do not apply for more than $50,000 because there and then you will be rendered, you will not be considered for the process because you have gone beyond the available grant type that we can offer, the grant amount we can offer. Yeah, so as I'm speaking through this information, again, it's easy to offer those tips for you so that you can contextualize it as well. And like I said earlier on, we are using Smart Simple, which is an online application process, and this is our second time. So important for you to know, we encourage applications from all regions of the world. So no matter which country that you are, wherever you are, do not worry about that. If we found in there, we do. And for languages, we accept 5 languages. We accept English, French, Russian, Chinese, and simple Chinese, simplified Chinese, and Spanish. And you can be registered or unregistered. If you're unregistered, don't worry about it. That is something that we can work with you. And even in the application, you can, there's a slot for you to notify us about your status. But unregistered groups in general need to just get a fiscal sponsor to receive the grant. So don't worry about your registration status. I think it's important to focus on the things I spoke about earlier on. And yeah, we can give for general support as well. We know that general support is something that is really hard for groups to get. General support funding is really difficult, and it's particularly more difficult for trans movement building to find. So ITF is happy and really, really happy to be able to offer that to folks. Smart Simple, it's an online platform for applications and grants. Here is the URL. I highlighted it and made it bigger so that even as we are speaking now, you can just type this in. Maybe you can minimize. If you're on your phone, maybe you can minimize and then open a new page and type this in. If you're on your laptop, same thing. But you'll be able to follow and see what I'm talking about. I guess also if there's something not available that I'm speaking about now, it will be, because remember, we haven't yet opened our call. Our call is opening in October, okay? The reason we did this event earlier is to prepare you. Yes, so everything that I speak into will be available there when we launch. So please be patient with us. But that is where you're going to put your application. And this is how you're going to put your application to that portal. First, you register your organization. Basically, you just need to inform us. There's certain information we will ask you that I'm going to show you. You provide that information, which is really about your organization and certain other questions, maybe relating to contacts, address, and so on and so forth. And after you register your organization, then now you're going to prepare your application, okay? Before you go into preparing your application, again, I remind you, please look at our guidelines, okay? They will also be available on the Smart Simple platform, but as well on our website. They're not yet there right now, but they will be. So if you don't find them there already, please be patient with us. But this is what the actual platform looks like, and there you are. You just register down there. You can see you register. If you don't, if your first language is not English, we have the option for you to either try Spanish, French, Russian, or simplified Chinese. But you will be able to access this. Hopefully you find it a smooth experience. But if you have any problems or challenges, you can always let us know. This is what I was speaking into about registration. So, for example, here we will ask you to tell us whether you're trans-led, And we will ask for the name of your organization, your address, city, country, province. So all of this information needs to be filled in. As you can see, the asterisks in red. You can't go to the next question without answering the previous, because it's all super important that we know this. And you can see below there when I was speaking earlier about if your organization is formally registered, right? The reason that we're asking is just to follow up with you. Excuse me, when you, if you are successful about giving you support with identifying a fiscal host to receive the funds on your behalf. So don't worry about that. And I think the thing about social media, that question there, please give us your social media if it's functioning, because that's something that is important to tell us about your group or provide more information about the kind of work you're doing. So don't forget, because that's commonly left out for some reason, or not. Usually it is not answered sufficiently. So please make sure that you do that. And then all of this, also your name, email, position, pronouns, the language, and then don't forget to click there, I am not a robot, and then submit. Okay, when you submit, it should take you to automatically confirm that your registration is complete. You will be receiving an email on the email that you registered with that will verify, and the email is going to look something like this. So it will ask you, prompt you to click on that link. Please do click on that link. Once you click on that link, you will be taken to put a password, and you put a password, you will confirm that password as well. Those are the guidelines for making sure that you have a strong password. And then you will be directed straight into the page. As I said, you will have the application guidelines ready. That's your full package. It's comprehensive. There's everything you need to know there. Look at that before you start. If you've looked at it and you're happy to go forward, then you're just now preparing yourself to make sure you apply for the right grant type. So if you are a group to the ITF, you've never received ITF funding, you should be thinking about the seed grant type, okay? So you will go ahead and be prompted to choose between seed and thrive. Once you choose seed, for example, you can go ahead and you can see here, it says apply now, right? So you can start your application, and it will remind you about eligibility right there. You should be thinking about that before you start. But once you start your application, keep in mind that you have an opportunity to save your application at all points. So that should be sort of a relief to you to know that you don't have to submit the same day that you open. You can save as a draft and come back to it at all times throughout the application window period. Because we ideally launch the call October and we close it December. So you have that opportunity to come back to your application. And so the contact information will be there. You'll go through the eligibility quiz, and you'll find the project information related questions, and you can answer all of those. And as you can see, I want to just talk about when it asks you for the secondary contact. This can be quite come in handy for you, for your organization as an applicant, so that you can apply with your colleague. So you involve your colleague here as a secondary contact, and that person can be with you throughout the application, right? So for instance, I'm with Luca here, so it would be me, Mukasha, and then Luca, and then would sort of be applying together in a way. And then the second point is about references. This is very important. This is very important because we need you, first of all, to get permission from folk to put them as your referees, to sort of speak a good word for your group, but knowledge of your group's work and also a confirmation of how well they know your group as a trans-led organization, the experience they've had with you. It can be a funder, it can be an NGO, it can be, related to your line of work, however you organize, but make sure you put we need contacts of people that are available. So for instance, working and functional emails should be included there, because if we don't hear back from them, it can slow down your process. And you have the option of applying for submitting a written application or a video. If you're applying for video, via video, then there's the guideline will be available to you once you click video. And if you were doing a written if you're doing a written application, then you click the manual and it will take you there. The questions for answering for both format is the same. Only that for video, we need your video should not be larger than 2 GB. Okay, and that's where you can place your video right there. Drop files, or you can browse files. It will go to your computer, and then you can put it there. But those are basically the same questions that you'll be answering, which is on the written format as well. You will see all that in the platform. And again, once you're ready to submit, for that purpose, you have to now go to the budget part, which is sort of the part B of your application. And the budget is divided into 2 sections. There's a general support and project support, okay? So depending on what kind of funding application you're putting into the ITF, you can go ahead and click there. Some folks do both of that work, general support and project. It's really up to you, okay? It's really up to you. But make sure you provide as many details as possible. Excuse me. Make sure you also state the amount in US dollars, not your local currency. And don't forget to put the total at the bottom of the budget. The total that you put at the bottom of the budget template should be the total amount you're actually requesting from the ITF. You remember earlier on when I spoke about make sure you ask for the money that your group needs to do the work. And then secondly, make sure that you do not exceed the maximum ceiling. So that amount that you've asked for should mirror the total in your budget. If there's a discrepancy, that can actually affect your application. So try to make sure that you look through some of these things. And that's why it's advisable we ask that you add a secondary contact, someone within your organization to help you. It could be to review what you have put in, or you can work together depending on how you deem fit. But that's always important. And this is how it looks like on the platform on Smart Simple for budget information. And then you can move forward, right? Like after you've done that part, a pop-up window will actually open. But the next thing that it will prompt you to do, which is very important and still part of financial information, which is the part B that I'm explaining of the application, is we will ask, what was your organization's overall revenue or income last year? Please tell us. If it's 3,000, you can say it's 3,000. You know, if it's, actually, I don't even need to go to the platform. This is a demonstration of how it looks like. So I don't have to sign in and show you, but this is how it will look like. Just let us know what your overall income revenue was and what your expenses were. Okay, so how much you got into the organization, how much you spent, and if you received grants before. And it will also ask you, if you say yes, we'll also ask you to list those funders that you've received. And please make sure to inform us about this. Like, make sure as much as possible to be transparent and open and honest to the ITF, because it will not be good if we find out that, for some reason a group was concealing information. So please make sure that you do look through your application throughout the period to make sure that you've included all this information and that you've not missed anything. Okay, I think this is also clear. Like I said, you just list the fund. When was the funding received? How many years, the amount, and the purpose in the past, right? But secondly, it could be that you're expecting, right? Or you've applied someone or you've approached some. So you can tell us. You can tell us who you have approached, and how much, the purpose, and the status in terms of like if you've applied, or if you've actually got a decision, or if you actually got the grant or expecting the grant. That's on status. Yeah, the last column. I'll pause for that to sink in a little bit. Okay. All right, we're doing well, folks. So look, we are ready to submit. That's the end. We're ready to submit. And again, you can save as draft, right? You can save the draft. However, note that once you submit, the application goes. Okay, so make sure that you, before you submit, look through yourself. It could be on another day, on a fresh day. You can look through, or you can invite your colleague to look at it, even both. But when you submit the application, it comes to us, and to be quite difficult, or actually it's impossible to sort of change your application. It will come to us, it will be with us. Yeah, at that point, we'll say, good luck, and I'll have my fingers crossed for you. So for the last part of this presentation, which is actually the most important, I'm going to share tips on a strong application. Okay. The information I'm sharing is just a collective of advice from ITF staff, the ITF team, but also what we've gathered based on GMP experiences, GMP review processes, but also there's this common mistakes that folk make in their application. So I think it's very important that you consider this, but you have a benefit of being here today, or even just watching this video, for me to give you more information beyond these written slides. And I will go straight into it. So for instance, when we say, remember your reviewer, I will say that what we mean here is that the grant-making panel is a panel of up to 15 trans activists. It's not one person, it's not two people. So these people also come from across the globe. And most often, they may not know about your country. They may not know about your work, your organization. So I will say to you, just write to them as if they don't know, okay? Even if there's an assumption that you think they know, write to them as if they don't know. And you have to convince the GMP, okay? You have to convince the GMP about why is it important that ITF, that your organization get ITF funding. Let's pause for a second there. Why is it important? Why is it critical that you should get ITF funding? That's what you should say. That's what you should say in the application. From my experience, people have been so good at saying it vocally, or like just verbally, but not putting that in their application. So make sure you put that there. And you're speaking to your peers, so feel comfortable, feel safe, because you're speaking to trans activists. But when I say, remember your reviewer, saying, tell them why it is important that you get ITF funding. Tell them about your context, your country, what it is like organizing there, what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, right? These are the things that make GMP go, oh, so it doesn't have to really be something so generic, and it has to really be an application that stands out, because like I said, there's hundreds of other applications, okay? that's one. And then the second one, again, very related to what I just said, but I will speak about impact specifically here, is ensure your application stands out. And how do you do that? Simply write a good impact. Write a good impact. Talk about, if you get ITF funding, what will change, what you will do with it, that will change the situation for trans folks. So for example, let me give you an example. So it could be that you have the opportunity to do reform or policy work that around a law that actually could bring legal gender recognition in your country, and you have everything but the funding to do it. Tell the GMP. That's exactly how I've said it. If you say that in the application, that could be a very good opportunity for you, making application stand out. But you know what you are, you know the challenges, you are the solutions to those challenges, right? And most often it's just that you don't have the resources, okay? And even beyond financial resources, the other resources that are non-financial, you need the finance to get them. So those are the things you should speak about. So if it's capacity building, you know, you need the ITF funding to do this and this and this around building the capacity, for example. You know, it could be training. It could be training the medical professionals, right? I'm sorry, somebody is unmuted. I don't know why. Luca, is everything okay? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, everything is okay. I think it was just an accident.
Okay, folks, please, as you enter, please mute your microphone, because as I said, we would love this to be available for other people who are not here today. And if you're not muted, it could affect the sound and the feedback. So, and I'm also being really passionate about it because this is very important for you to have a strong application. You want to get this while you're preparing, and even when you're finished preparing application, double check to make sure that some of these things are there. Being realistic, you know, you're the experts. You know, we respect you. You're the experts in your context where you're coming from. Tell the GMP, speak as an expert, you know, tell the GMP of what it is in your context, how is organizing, what your organization does. The GMP needs to understand what your organization does. They also need to know what your organization is going to do with the funding. Okay? Those are the two very important questions that should always hover in your mind when you're responding to these questions, right? When you're responding to the questions around application for funding. Forget the registration ones, forget the eligibility one. The one around applying for funding. So there's a question, for example, ask, what are your activities? That is very important. Just clearly list your activities. Be very clear. Avoid confusion. Be very clear. If it is peer educating, if it is sports campaigns, if it is educating health workers, you're the ones that do the work. You have the best way. I can't give examples because you're the ones that do the work. You know these things. Just put that down in the application. And again, I think the mistake most people do is they assume that the GMP knows their group or knows their work. So write like they don't. And again, a very good tip around this is ask for the funding that your group needs to do the work. Because if, you know, these folk on the GMP, they also are trans activists. Okay, so if you're asking for more money than what you actually need to do the work, there'll be a question mark. Why? Why are you asking for more money than what you want to do? So if, for example, you said you want to conduct a sensitization training. This the examples I'm giving is based on what I've seen. A sensitization training for let's say therapists, counselors, social workers. Maybe let me use social workers 15 social workers. You want to train 15 social workers for 3 days, right? Your budget says something like 10,000. And fine, it might actually be within that range to hold that project. But in your request, you're asking for 25,000 US dollars. You see, so there's a discrepancy there. So those are the common mistakes. The folks will even ask, why weren't we accepted? So those are the common mistakes. Yeah? The other thing is when your application is not complete, please take your time to make sure that you answer all the questions on that application. So it could be the narrative part A, but it could also be part B, which is financial information. So yeah, you don't have to do this application in one day. Okay, just spread out your time to to make sure that you're giving ample time for this application. Because if you're rushing into it and trying to finish it in one day, then it's very easy to forget to answer certain questions, or that you've answered some questions very well, and then the others, you're very simplified on them. You've not been as comprehensive as you have with it. It's sort of like you got tired towards the end. And I've seen some applications and felt that tone. So try to avoid that. And how you can avoid that is dividing your time, like make time for this. You have about 3 months. You have about 3 months-ish. So you can assign your time properly to make sure that you give this application the time it deserves. Because again, at the end of the day, like we said, there's so many other applications in the pool waiting to be considered, or with yours. So you have to really make sure that you give it time. So it's not going to be about your budget. It will never be. The GMP looks at the application as a whole. Folks have come to the end of the presentation. I really hope you found it useful, and we're opening or launching the call in October. Our deadline is ideally December 31st, 2024, but in case that if anything change, we will notify you. Once you see the call, the deadline will also be available. But just to note that it will be 5 p.m. Eastern time, which is New York time. So if you look at timeanddate.com, this is a very handy resource for you to have. Just you can type in where you are against that 5 p.m. Eastern time, and it will show you what time that is in your time zone. It will show you that exact time. But I would encourage you not to wait last minute. Like I said, you can see how important this whole application process is. So give your application as much time as you can within the application period. And we will be sending an evaluation, which shouldn't take much of a time, but please do look at that. Here is my email address, and for the ITF team, I would encourage you to reach out to info@transfund.org first. I would encourage you to, if you have any challenges, to write to info@transfund.org first. But if there's anything that you specifically want me to answer, you can reach out to my email there. But thank you so much.